Gosh, I want some answers.
I'm Connor MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod.
The 1980s gave us some of the most iconic blockbusters, shaping movie history for decades to come. But hidden beneath that legacy were films that bombed so badly they nearly destroyed careers and left studios scrambling. If you're into the forgotten, the failed, and the cinematic disasters that are so bad they're good, or even secretly brilliant, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And let's get into the 10 1980s movies that flopped hard at the box office but became cult classics.
Here, Brenda, there's a guy who's been creeping around since at least 1700.
It's not possible.
For he is not alone.
Number 10. Ishtar. Back in the 80s, few movies got roasted harder than Ishtar. On paper, it should have been a slam dunk. Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman were two of the biggest stars in Hollywood, and Elaine May was a respected director with a sharp comedic style. The story? Two hopeless lounge singers head to Morocco for a gig and end up caught in a Cold War mess. Big stars, exotic locations, goofy adventure. What could possibly go wrong? Pretty much everything. The budget started at $28 million, but ballooned to $51 million after endless production problems in the desert and constant clashes behind the scenes. By the time it hit theaters in 1987, critics were sharpening their knives. Reviews were brutal. Audiences ignored it. And to make matters worse, Beverly Hills Cop 2 opened the same weekend. Ishtar barely scraped together $14.3 million worldwide, instantly becoming one of the most infamous bombs of the decade. But time changed everything. On VHS, cable, and later re-releases, people gave it another chance and realized it wasn't the disaster they'd been told it was. Beneath the messy production was a strange, offbeat comedy with plenty of charm. Even critics started to come around, calling it bold, original, and funnier than its reputation suggested. Today, Ishtar has a loyal group of fans who defend it as one of the most misunderstood movies of the 80s. What was once Hollywood's biggest punchline is now remembered as a quirky cult classic that just needed time to find its audience.
You are so beautiful. You are so beautiful.
Don't kid me.
Number 9. Krull. The early 80s were all about chasing the high of Star Wars, and studios were willing to throw millions at anything with spaceships, swords, or magic. Out of that craze came Krull, a wild mashup of sci-fi and fantasy where Prince Colwyn sets out to rescue his bride from alien invaders armed with the glaive, a flashy, star-shaped weapon that fans never forgot. Columbia Pictures went big on this one, spending about $47 million, huge money back then. But when Krull hit theaters in July 1983, it bombed. Critics slammed it as slow and messy. Audiences didn't know if it was supposed to be serious or silly, and it only pulled in $16.9 million. For a while, it was famous for being one of the decade's most expensive flops. But here's the thing. Krull refused to stay dead. VHS and late-night TV gave it a second life. James Horner's sweeping score became a fan favorite, and its mix of medieval fantasy and space adventure started to feel charming instead of clunky. The effects look dated now, but the creativity shines through. Today, Krull isn't remembered as the next Star Wars. It's remembered as its own strange, ambitious, and totally 80s cult classic.
Father says that good fighters make bad husbands. Your journey was hard,
But necessary.
Number 8. Legend. Before Top Gun made Tom Cruise a superstar, he showed up in one of the strangest fantasy films of the 80s, Legend. On paper, it had everything. A young Cruise as the hero, a fairy tale battle of light versus darkness, and Tim Curry as the Lord of Darkness, buried under some of the most incredible makeup ever put on film. With lavish sets and a $25 million budget, it looked like a sure thing. But when it hit theaters in 1985, audiences weren't buying it. The US release was cut down, the original score was swapped for a synth-heavy soundtrack, and critics tore into its thin story and clunky dialogue. At the box office, it barely scraped $23.5 million, hardly enough to cover its massive budget. That should have been the end, but Legend found new life on VHS. Fans couldn't get enough of its dreamy visuals, and when the director's cut restored Ridley Scott's original vision and Jerry Goldsmith's score, people finally saw the film's beauty. Over time, it went from flop to cult favorite. Today, Legend is remembered for its stunning imagery and Tim Curry's unforgettable villain, proof that even a box office disaster can turn into an 80s classic.
Visual that I've been promising to show you. Always go now, because I'll only be here for a short while.
Number 7. The King of Comedy. When Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro teamed up again in the early 80s, fans expected another gritty masterpiece like Taxi Driver or Raging Bull. Instead, they got The King of Comedy, a darkly funny and painfully awkward story about Rupert Pupkin, a wannabe comedian so desperate for fame that he kidnaps his idol, played by Jerry Lewis. On paper, it sounded brilliant, but in 1982, nobody showed up. The movie cost about $19 million and only made $2.5 million worldwide. Critics didn't know how to handle it. Some thought it was bold, others just found it uncomfortable and not funny. Audiences wanted big laughs and flashy blockbusters, not a satire that hit a little too close to home. The movie sank fast and was written off as one of Scorsese's few failures, but time turned this flop into a classic. As celebrity culture spiraled in the decades that followed, the king of comedy started to look like a prophecy. Modern critics rave about it, with The Guardian calling it one of Scorsese's greatest, and even Akira Kurosawa listed it as a favorite. Its fingerprints are all over later films, especially Joker in 2019. What once seemed too weird and too dark now feels razor sharp and more relevant than ever.
And I'm thinking as I'm sitting here now, well, maybe this is my big break. This is my big chance. You know what I mean?
No, it's an old hackneyed expression, but it happens to be the truth. You've got to start at the bottom.
Number 6. The Thing. When The Thing hit theaters in 1982, it bombed so hard you'd never guess it would one day be called one of the best horror movies ever. Universal spent $15 million, packed it with insane creature effects by Rob Bottin, and expected a hit. Instead, it only made about $19 million worldwide. The problem? Timing. Just weeks earlier, E.T. had everyone crying happy tears over a cute alien. Then along came Carpenter's The Thing, cold, paranoid, and full of grotesque body horror. Audiences weren't ready for it, and critics shredded it. The New York Times even called it instant junk. Carpenter, who'd been riding high, suddenly found himself without a studio deal, but fans found it later on VHS and cable. That's when people started to notice the genius, the suffocating atmosphere, the terrifying practical effects, and that legendary ending with two survivors staring each other down in the snow. Slowly, it built a cult following so strong that now it's seen as Carpenter's masterpiece, inspiring movies, video games, and a whole generation of horror. Back then, it was called a flop. Today, it's a crown jewel of 80s horror, proof that sometimes the world just isn't ready for greatness. Number 5. Blade Runner. Hard to believe now, but when Blade Runner came out in 1982, people thought it was a total disaster. Ridley Scott had just blown everyone away with Alien. Harrison Ford was the hottest star in Hollywood after Raiders of the Lost Ark, and the studio dropped about $28 million hoping for another blockbuster. Instead, it made around $27.5 million. Yep, it didn't even make its money back. Critics weren't much kinder either. Some loved the look of it, but a lot of people called it slow, boring, and way too confusing. The real problem? Timing. Just weeks before, E.T. had audiences falling in love with a sweet alien who wanted to go home. Then Blade Runner shows up with endless rain, neon shadows, and moody questions about what it even means to be human. People expecting another Harrison Ford action flick walked out scratching their heads. And that theatrical version with the awkward voiceover? Yeah, that didn't help either. But here's where it kicks in. On VHS and later with the 1992 director's cut, the movie started winning people over. Without the clunky narration, Ridley Scott's vision finally shined. Suddenly, the neon cityscapes, the gritty practical effects, and Vangelis' hypnotic synth score felt way ahead of their time. It inspired anime like Ghost in the Shell and shaped how filmmakers like Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve imagined the future. Decades later, Blade Runner isn't just respected, it's legendary. It went from too slow and too weird to the movie that basically invented the look and feel of cyberpunk. Proof that sometimes a flop just needs time for the world to catch up. Number 4. Highlander. There can be only one. You've heard that line a million times, but when Highlander hit theaters in 1986, hardly anybody cared. On paper, it had everything going for it. Christopher Lambert as Connor MacLeod, a Scottish warrior who can't die, Sean Connery as his mentor, and Queen blasting out an epic soundtrack. With sword fights across centuries and a budget of $16 million, it looked like a fantasy smash waiting to happen. But instead, it bombed. The movie only made about $12.9 million, not even enough to cover what it cost. Critics weren't kind either. They called it messy, confusing, and way too violent. Against all the other big movies playing at the time, Highlander didn't stand a chance. Then came home video. That's where Highlander found its true audience. Fans discovered the wild mythology, the epic battles, and the pure 80s style, and word of mouth turned it into a cult favorite. And of course, Queen's songs Who Wants to Live Forever and Princes of the Universe made it unforgettable. From sequels and a TV series to endless fan debates and even a reboot in the works with Henry Cavill, Highlander proved it wasn't going anywhere. It may have flopped in 86, but its legend only grew with time. And just like its heroes, this movie turned out to be immortal. Number 3, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Terry Gilliam has never been the kind of guy to play it safe, and The Adventures of Baron Munchausen proves it. This movie was pure imagination on overdrive. A wild story about an eccentric nobleman bragging about his impossible adventures. It had giant sets, crazy special effects, and a star-studded cast with John Neville, Uma Thurman, Robin Williams, and even some of the Monty Python crew. The problem? It cost way too much. The budget started around $23 million, but Gilliam's perfectionist streak and a chaotic shoot sent the cost soaring past $46 million. By the time it hit theaters in 1988, it was doomed. The movie only made about $8 million, making it one of the decade's biggest flops. Behind-the-scenes stories didn't help either. Delays, fights with the studio, and endless production headaches painted it as a disaster. Critics couldn't agree on it either. Some loved the creativity, while others thought it was confusing and overblown. But here's the fun part. It didn't stay forgotten. Like Gilliam's earlier movie Brazil, it slowly found its audience. People who stumbled onto it on VHS or TV loved its wild creativity, its stunning visuals, and its fairy tale weirdness. Over time, it's come to be seen as the last piece of Gilliam's trilogy of imagination, alongside Time Bandits and Brazil. These days, fans celebrate it as one of his boldest and most magical films. Sure, it tanked at the box office, but now it's remembered as a true cult classic, a movie that dared to dream too big and eventually won people over because of it. Number 2, The Right Stuff. On paper, The Right Stuff should have been a blockbuster. It had a huge $27 million budget, it was based on Tom Wolfe's best-selling book, and it told the story of America's very first astronauts, the Mercury 7. You had thrilling jet pilot scenes, epic space sequences, and big names like Chuck Yeager and John Glenn getting the Hollywood treatment. It had all the ingredients for a hit. But in 1983, audiences just weren't biting. At nearly 3.5 hours long, the movie felt too slow and too serious for most people. Instead of lining up for Kaufman's thoughtful take on heroism and the space race, they went looking for faster thrills elsewhere. The Right Stuff only made about $21.5 million, which didn't even cover its budget. Critics, though, couldn't get enough. Roger Ebert even called it the best movie of the year, and it picked up 8 Oscar nominations, winning 4 of them. The best part came later. Thanks to TV airings and VHS, more people finally gave it a chance, and that's when its reputation changed. Space fans especially embraced it for how real and grounded it felt compared to other space movies. What seemed like an overlong flop in '83 has since been reappraised as one of the greatest films about space exploration ever made. Today, The Right Stuff isn't remembered as a failure, it's remembered as the definitive space race movie that just needed time to land. And finally, at number 1, Heathers. By 1989, audiences thought they knew teen movies, silly comedies, cheesy romances, the usual high school drama. Then Heather showed up and blew the whole formula apart. Instead of pep rallies and prom, it gave us murder, suicide, and a scathing look at popularity gone wrong. Winona Ryder starred as Veronica, stuck in a toxic clique of Heathers, while Christian Slater's J.D. oozed charm and danger in equal measure. It wasn't sweet or safe, it was dark, twisted, and hilarious in ways nobody was ready for. The movie cost about $3 million, but barely made $1.1 million back. Critics didn't know how to handle it, with Roger Ebert calling it hard to tell if it was comedy or just pure cynicism. Parents hated it, theaters ignored it, and for a moment, Heathers looked like another forgotten misfire. But then came VHS. Teens who didn't see themselves in glossy John Hughes comedies found Heathers and claimed it as their own. Its razor-sharp dialogue and an unapologetic attitude turned it into a cult classic. Midnight screenings kept the fire alive, and soon its DNA was showing up everywhere from Jawbreaker to Euphoria. Today, Heathers is remembered not as a flop, but as one of the most influential teen films ever made. It gave outsiders their anthem, made Ryder and Slater into icons, and proved that sometimes the movies people fear the most are the ones that stick around forever. So which of these movies surprised you the most? Drop a comment and let us know which 80s flop you'll never forget, whether because it was such a disaster it stuck in your head, or because you secretly fell in love with it years later. And hey, I know some of you are going to defend Flash Gordon or Ishtar to the bitter end, so tell me if you think they got an unfair reputation, or if the critics were right all along. Don't forget to hit that like button if this countdown brought back some wild movie memories, and subscribe for more nostalgic deep dives into the films that shaped our childhoods, the iconic blockbusters, and the legendary flops. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.